how we understand the typical the way we do creativity, like being juxtaposed or being radical paradox, and then we talk about the fixation, how to measure creativity, the fixation or the fixedness, and also he mentioned about the Spira method. You can look or search on our website. It is widely applied design research methodology, the Spira method, and also the function that he mentioned before. And also how, because Prof. Chakrabarti is the chief editor at the AI EDAM journal, quite few the example that he has given very unique, like chat GPT test, where AI doesn't thinking divergently, and also another discussion could be open, like empathetic design. Does AI work towards empathetic design? And also different type, two different type of being performance, or also the one that don't care about the performance instead of learning. And the AI threats about giving data to AI, sizing and being adequate, producing adequate product, and also the ontology. But mainly, Professor Chakrabarti mentioned that AI aided versus aided, non-aided or unaided is AI incrementally creative but not radically creative. It is very important. There is a trade-off, but reduce diversity. So he mentioned also about the becoming good designers, mainly for the design and manufacturing, how we adapt the AI towards new methodology for the design education. He gives some explanation about we must consider the data-driven to be considered important for the next education, for the next design ways of thinking. Designer ways of thinking. So pretty much that we need to apply the knowledge and having ability to be flexible. I hope this is wrap up all the discussion. Thank you very much, and give a big hands for Jadi nanti kita akan berikan sertifikat ya untuk para peserta yang hadir. Kita tutup pertemuan kali ini. Terima kasih Prof. Amaresh sudah 2 minggu ada di sini memberikan lectures, workshop dan lain sebagainya. Terima kasih Prof. Chakrabarti. Ada snack di luar masih bisa diambil lagi ya. Terima kasih. I will pass you the certificate. Please have some photo for both of us.
Our output is getting smarter a little bit, but we are not getting smarter. Okay? While those with a higher performance orientation show an attenuated. Okay, all this means is that if you normally, okay, are a good, there are 2 kinds of people, okay, according to psychological research. One kind of people are performance oriented people. They want the output to be good, no matter what happens to them. And other kind of people is, they don't care about the performance part, they want to learn, they want to make themselves better. These are 2 different kinds of people. Now when the performance people don't get affected much by use of AI, because they were anyway not interested in improving them. But those who are mastery or learning oriented, they get much more negative effect because they are not learning anymore. Earlier they were learning from everything, now they have stopped learning. So the difference is big. So particularly negative effect on those people who were originally learning people, and for the performance oriented people, anyway they were not learning, so it doesn't matter. This is another experiment, one of my colleagues actually, good friend Saima, my junior in Cambridge actually. She is now a professor at Editor, and her group had done a research study where they asked 600 human participants from all walks of life. They are not great creative people here and there. They're just regular people from the walks of society. 600 people alongside 12,000 ideas produced by large language models. So 600 people came up with their ideas and 12,000 ideas were produced by large language models. And the conclusion from she drew is the following. Humans are producing more creative ideas, whereas AI produces a larger volume of ideas. So once again, AI leads to greater fluency, whereas humans produce greater variety. That variety once again. So flexibility, remember I used that in the beginning, a measure of how different ideas from one another is something where these regular average people are excelling compared to AI. So, similar conclusion as the other paper that I wrote. I'm just amazed at the quality and the variety. These are not variety because I think they are variants of the same person, but there is a lot of variety also. Is AI a threat or defense? Okay. So there is a very nice piece of work again recognized here. He says yes, there are many threats. There are two threats. One is perceived threats. One is that as AI becomes more, remember the AI that I am talking about today is sort of last 3 years or 5 years ago. Okay? But every day, every time you search something on an open platform, AI platform, you are giving data to AI. The fact that you are searching about something is also data for AI. And all of that, it is assimilating into its ability and is becoming better. Okay? So next time you want to search for something on AI, first think whether this is something you do not want to share. If you do not want to share, do not search it. Yeah. Because it's not really giving you any option whether it will absorb or not, because it will absorb. So as AI becomes increasingly advanced, its capacity for creative output might eclipse its human knowledge. There is no reason to believe that today, just because it's unable to do it, that tomorrow also it will not do it. Every day it's doing better. So that's one thing, that it may be that over a period of time it renders human creativity relevant. Second threat, and a more imminent threat, is the following: that due to the very low cost of production, AI will be seized upon for its ability to provide an inexpensive but adequate product compared to more expensive processes which require deep human creativity. The workers made economically redundant in this revolution will then no longer exhibit as much creativity as they would have had they been paid to do so. This is the more imminent threat. Okay? And why is this imminent? Look at this. ChatGPT can write a press release or an article in seconds. DALL-E can generate dozens of possible logo designs at the same time. AppyPie can provide a rudimentary website and a whole sort of host of services that claim to be brainstorming AIs, generating or at least restructuring ideas. These examples expose a clearly defined domain in which AI encroaches on human creativity for profit. So this is the more imminent threat. Threat number 2. So what do you do then? Well, this is the softest Vivek that I have given.
What do you think about that?
Amaresh, let me clarify something for this picture.
Yeah.
So, kemarin kita ke Asep Strawberry. Setelah kita ketangkap bandara dan kita pulang sampai malam, saya baru ingat saya belum bayar sampai sekarang. Jadi hari ini saya akan selesaikan pembayaran.
So this is a fruit they are not paid for yet. So I will now change gear, and this is the last portion of my talk. What is design competence? Because we are talking about designer, all that. But what is this thing called design competence? What does it involve? So one of my PhD students, Sona, wrote a wonderful piece of work on that, and I'm going to present that in Paris in July this year. And our work is based on other people's work, of course. It's the ability, these are definitions of competence. based on which she defines design competence as the ability to integrate knowledge, skills, attitudes to effectively perform a given design task specific to its context. So these are all important words, they are all defined and operationalized and so on. The focus, that's why these are in red, integrating knowledge, skills and attitudes, and the intent is to perform the given task, design task. And so, therefore, what is knowledge, what is attitude, what is skill, all of them must come together for successful performance, design task performance. And this is the probably the most important slide in this. So let me come on this side. Okay. So some years ago I did some work on this, and several others, even Horvath from Dell and various others did work on trying to create a structure for design competence or elements of design competence. These are the factors that we have finally coalesced on, and they are based on 5 questions. Questions are about what, about how, about where, why, whom, and on when. Okay. So artifact. The what question is about what artifact are you designing? Product, process, or service, or organization. These are the 4 alternatives. Technique is how we are doing that, either by creating the form or the function, or structure of the function, depending on which aspect you are looking at. Third is where, so the entire system, the interface, or the surroundings. The fourth is why. Well, for supporting existence of some species, some group, or sustenance, for continuing for them to survive, or furtherance to become bigger or better. The fourth is the whom, so it is society, economy, or ecology, and finally implementation, whether it is the development aspect, the realization aspect, maintenance aspect, or retirement aspect. So if you take these alternatives, the what, why, technique, focus, needs, and so on, user and implementation, then you get this design task syntax. Develop a plan. This is what a design task is. Okay, and these are generic words. If you put specific words there, they become a specific design task. So a general design task is like that. I want to design a plan for the implementation of an artifact by manipulating the technique of its focus, okay, towards the needs of the stakeholder. So each of these elements, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the reds, there are 6 reds, these are these 6 reds. Okay, these 6 columns. So if you do that now, then, and so here are the definitions of those artifacts. Okay, a product is a tangible good. A process is a series of actions. A service is an intangible good. Organization is a structured group of people working together, and so on. So these are all defined. Okay, and then, as you can see, these are all taken from multiple people's work. It's not our work only. It's a assimilation of others' work. Here is an example. It's taken from architecture. Develop a plan for implementation, etc. So here, the artifact is an example. The artifact is a dwelling. Okay, it's a product. Dwelling can be a product. Process can be slum redevelopment. Service can be building permit development. And organization is a particular architectural organization. Yeah. Form can be shapes. Function can be cost. System can be floor. Surrounding can be climate. Interface can be facade. Existence kind of need will be safety, for example, one. Sustenance can be occupied comfort. Furtherance can be cultural identity. You can see that if the need can be broader. It can be very specific, like safety. It can be very broad, like cultural identity. Stakeholders can be squatters, people who are on the ground level. Economy can be trade. Ecology can be biodiversity. And implementation can be development, like estimation of cost, or realization, like construction of in situ, or use can be retrofitting, and retirement can be demolition. So they're just examples of these various constructs that are there. Overall, what we did was we analyzed work from art schools, architectural schools, technology schools, and brought it together to create this plan, this structure. Okay. Why am I talking about all of this? Because we want to master design. So how do you do that? That brings us to this question of how to develop design. So in a way, of course this room is full of designers, but in any room full of people, it turns out that everybody is a designer. Why? Because all of them in one aspect or the other are constructing what they don't like and what they would like better and what can they do. For example, some of you may not be liking my talk and therefore you are trying to hide that from me by appearing to like me. That's designing. Okay, but that doesn't mean that we are all good designers. Or even if we are all good designers, can you be better designers? So therefore, there is always scope for improvement. So what is that scope for improvement? I want you to notice two things, and I don't have time, otherwise I would have given you examples from various pieces of art, artistic movement and architectural development and engineering development to show you that these two are always there across them. One is that there are always, when you are designing something, you are always designing for multiple goals. It is not one goal that you solve. You always have multiple goals and some are conflicting goals. You want to improve the functionality, but you also don't want the cost to go up, and so on. And so some goals are more important than others. There are always multiple goals. Second is, you always have multiple ways of achieving it. Some are better than the others. The question is, how do you figure those out? How to identify what goals are there? How to assess how important these are? How to generate possible alternative plans? How to assess which ones are better, and how to modify better plans based on this one. Right? We all know that there are multiple plans, but what are those multiple plans? Once we have the multiple plans, how do you know which one is better? Those are the important questions. So basically, those who are able to do design well are those who are able to do these things well. Okay, so back to this again, to identify goals. And here I want to emphasize the importance of data. You need to have reliable data of your stakeholders. You need to be able to critically analyze that data, and you need to go beyond what the stakeholders say. If you go and ask them, and this was famously said by Ford when he was designing the first people's motor car, right? Ford Model T. He said, if I went and asked my stakeholders, they would have asked for a faster horse, right? Okay, now look at that statement, okay? Asked for faster horse. That's what stakeholders should do, because they will connect their need to something that they have seen. They have not seen a motor car, so they cannot suggest a motor car. But if you analyze beyond that immediate statement, faster horse, take out the horse part, what do you get? Faster. So stakeholders are telling you something, you need to identify the right part of that, what they are telling. Get rid of the solution specific part of the statement, look at the solution neutral part of the statement. So faster horse, take out horse, you get faster. So they are looking for something faster. And of course, motor car eventually gives them something faster. So go beyond what they say, but do not ignore what they say. Okay? Find the latent need. These are things AI cannot do. Very unlikely it will be able to do in the near future. How to assess how important these goals are? Once again, reliable data. Reliable data is so important. Today, you go to ChatGPT and you ask, okay, give me the persona for XYZ. They will give 20 persona. How do you know those are correct persona? You don't know. However, if the product fails and God forbid somebody dies, who is going to be responsible? You, not AI. Therefore, the onus lies on you to ensure what you are saying is highly likely to be right. And therefore, data becomes important. Okay? Then going on to the next point, how to generate possible alternative plans, train and nurture human creativity. Do not become dumber. Very important to become smarter by learning. Learning is absolutely essential. You need to have wide exposure to expand domain knowledge. Okay? Not get fixated into one area. Learn multiple things. Third part is how to assess which of the plans are better. reliable data on plans and performance. Once again, once you have a plan, how do you know that this plan is better than that plan? So this is where simulation becomes important. And as you all know, there are different kinds of simulation, some physical, some virtual, some mathematical. You know, once you become better at doing that and using the right people to simulate, then you will have a much greater idea, better idea, more reliable idea about what the performance is like. And then you can better able to choose that. Data-driven critical analysis beyond what stakeholders say. How to modify plans? Once again, the same thing. These two are similar. Critical thinking, data-driven decision making are very important. Okay? All right, we move on. Train designers on how to take input from AI, but not trust this. Look at the input, but evaluate it yourself. Make it better yourself. Help them become data-driven, where data is available, reliable. Generate own data. Use two different methods to come up with the data and see whether they match with each other. Train and test them for their own ability to identify, therefore abstract. Ideate, therefore diverge and combine. Consolidate, for example, find out where the contradictions are, resolve them, make them, test them, debug them, and so on. And select, evaluate, aggregate, and learn from this. These are very human qualities that you are already born with. Just strengthen them. Help the designers to develop their own confidence on their own ability and value. It is humans who are responsible for their plans. So this is what this is the kind of most important slide in this portion. This is where you are. Okay? On one hand, we are probably getting a change in outcome. S is student, AI is AI. When what S is able to give as output and what S is able to give as output with AI is there is some evidence that some of that is better. Okay? But the most important question is here that what happens to S? It's not only what happens to output, but what happens to S? S plus AI, is it better than S without AI? We know that the output of S with AI is sometimes better than output of S with AI in terms of fluency, but not in terms of diversity. But what about S's own ability to do it? Is it better or worse? And we believe it is worse. And that has to flip. So this is what you want to get to. Okay? S should be able to produce improved outcome with AI, and S should become better in terms of its learning when, even though it uses AI. That's the state we need to go to. I do not have an answer how we go there, but we are equally thinking of that question in our university. Okay? So yes, here are some of the learnings from ours. Okay? This game is my department, design and manufacturing. Game addressing AI. Should there be a common course for game in the university? The answer is yes. All university departments have said that we need to have common courses on AI. At the institute level, we need to train students in the basics of AI. At the department level, we need to have general courses on AI that is related directly to the areas that are relevant for our department. And similar thing you can ask yourself. And at the course level, we also need to have AI as a tool to support activity. But students are encouraged to use AI to enhance their output, but they must take full responsibility for the decisions. They cannot so much activity games. Okay? Students must be able to explain why and how are the outputs produced. What aspects of the contributions are their own and what aspects are that of AI. The pros and cons of the outcomes. What are the good things and the bad things of outcomes, and so on. So basically, it must happen with learning, not without learning. Okay? Hopefully the last slide, let's see. Okay, so anyway, this is the most important part is here. So we said that we are going to encourage them to use AI in the course of projects. However, they must remain fully accountable for the outputs. and in the courses some general mechanism to test. We need to test the students to see what their individual abilities are. Cambridge has already introduced exams that are handed without use of any devices, right? And there is a reason for that. So assessment rubric to focus on questions that throws understanding. Have they understood? Innovation. Have they innovated? Clarity of contribution. What have they contributed? What have they taken from AI? I think these are some of the points that we don't know. They just point us for you to think. And with that, I would like to stop my talk. And wow, what a trip that we have been. And I can't thank you enough for this opportunity. So thank you. And photo credits to the entire team for taking all the
It's really enlightening for everyone. And so we are entering the QA session. But before that, probably any of you, before we look at the QR code that you have been putting the question, maybe direct question from here, maybe anyone? I insist. Yeah. Pak Motul perhaps dari Ministry of representative, maybe, or any of the students or alumni here before we. Oh, okay. Okay. Later on, we look at the QA on the website.
Good morning, Professor Jacob. I'm Chandra. I'm probably, I think it's safe to assume, I think it's safe to assume I'm the only math teacher in the room, and no, I'm not lost. We live in a very amazing era where.
Bring it down a little bit. Yeah, speak now. Right. Speak now. Don't bring it too close. Yeah.
Okay. So I believe we live in a very amazing era where, especially the millennials, we went through the technology and now we're in the virtual AI. Probably maybe in the next 10 or 20 years into general intelligence. So as a math teacher, I still think that promoting the cognitive development for students are still very important, even though we can possibly know everything right now. But creativity is, I believe, one of the most important that differentiate us from the AI. And what you just shared made me believe that I don't think machine can be creative enough, where they can be very smart, they can be very intelligent, but like, do you think there is a limit to the creativity in humans in general? And probably I want to ask a suggestion as well in terms of education. How do we train students these days when they could easily search for more references? It's very different from us. For us to learn how to be creative, we have the luxury of doing things that are not available. But like these days, the current generation, they have everything already. So what do you think can be used to support their creativity? Thank you.
Thank you, Chandra. Chandra is the alumni of the master program here. Okay, please, Amaresh.
Yeah. I think that's what I spent the last 2 slides on. What should be done on this? Reliable data on stakeholders. You need to train students to find reliable data on stakeholders. if they go to ChatGPT, they can get some data on stakeholders. How do you know those are correct data? So you need to train them, find data, and assess the reliability of that data. For instance, critical analysis. How do they take multiple sources of knowledge and bring these together to say, okay, this part is reliable, this part is not. These two are contradictory with each other, therefore both of them are suspect. Therefore, I need to find a third source to see whether these are right or not. What is the basis of the statements? Have they done a rigorous methodological study to find out the knowledge? Those are the questions that are part of critical analysis. How do you take the stakeholder input, but then sift those that are not relevant? Those are the questions that you need to ask. How do you train and nurture human creativity? What are the aspects of creativity that you require humans to do? Without that, they will not be able to show it. Now, keep moving to the next slide. I said, they will take input but not trust it. How do you ensure that they don't? How do you ensure that these students are data driven and generate their own data, triangulate their data? So I'm repeating myself, but these are some of the tasks that current AI, which is statistical, is not good at doing. Abstraction. They are not able to abstract very well. So please come up with ways in which you train humans in doing these on their own. See, when I have a calculator, I obviously cannot calculate a 5-digit number and multiply that with a 5-digit number. The number will not be correct. The AI, the computer in this case, will be better at doing that. But I might type it wrongly, and therefore the number will be incorrect. How do I know that what I have typed is largely right? That's where my maths education becomes important. I can make an approximation of those numbers and very quickly come up with a number to see ballpark what would be the number. So how do they have their own ability to find that ballpark that they can compare the AI output with to see whether it is largely right or not? Those are the areas in which you need to put your effort. And finally, as I said, these ones. Why and how are outputs produced? What aspects are their own, they are not their own, and so on. And take the full responsibility for their output. They cannot say this can be used. So what we are doing in our department is we are testing understanding. Okay, and if you ask a few questions, you know whether they understand or simply took the stuff and put it there on the slide. Innovation, have they innovated? You can figure out. Clarity of contributions, which part is taken from where. These are all pointers for you to exactly answer the question that you asked. Okay? All right.
Chandra, are you okay with the answer? I hope. Anyone? Yeah, please. We have 3 and then we move to the website. 4. Please.
Hello. Okay, thank you. My name is Amaresh. I'm an MBA student in SBM. I have a question about, from your presentation, mostly you explain on how maybe we can adopt the AI better so we can have a better output for our works and also for our learning, and it's a challenge that we also face. And the title is Preserving Human Agency. I want to ask about something maybe beyond it, because one of your part is also Professor of Engineering Design Synthesis and Sustainability in AI. And beyond that, the AI usage, there's a lot of concern on the sustainability, because it gives a lot of carbon emission and their operation from the center and training. So I want to ask about your view itself. Rather than adoption, what is your view if there's the idea of fully reject it in the, there are many concerns of not only from the output but also the overall sustainability process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for asking that question, and I think that broadens the ambit of discussion. First of all, these are of course views that I hold based on my research into sustainability. The first view is the following, that if we deconstruct the word sustainability, we see two things. One is sustain, the other is ability. So you put it in the opposite way, you get ability to sustain. Sustain what? And that is the first question about sustainability. It turns out that all our arguments, if you look at the sustainability argument, it is about sustaining humans, not sustaining the ecosystem around us. Sustaining the ecosystem around us because we need them as humans for our own sustainability. If you look at the history of development of species and Earth as a whole, living as humans, you see that carbon, you are talking about decarbonization. About 10,000 years ago, a little higher than that, there was a big peak in carbonization. Okay? A lot of volcanoes started spewing a lot of smoke. It was at least 10 times more. Okay? So, in the history of life of species, there have been multiple cases where carbonization has killed a lot of species. They went out. We have a very small percentage of species that existed. Many of them came, now they are there, before they were not there, and of course. So, if you leave nature to its own doing, it will also do stuff that you might not consider sustainable. So, the whole sustainability argument is anthropocentric, centered on humans. How do we survive and what else do we need for us to survive? We need air to breathe, we need water to survive, 80% of our body is water and so on, right? Okay, so once I have taken that particular position, the question is for how long? Sustainability for how long? Well, at some point you are going to stop. Because the sun is going to run out of fuel, we are therefore going to run out of fuel. So there is a limit on one side. Okay, you might argue we will move to another planet before that, where there is a different star that is energizing us. Okay, fine. So it gets into science fiction. Now, so we are talking about ideally surviving indefinitely. Okay? Fine. And indefinitely within the ambit of sun's existence. The next problem is that of the decomposition of sustainability into decarbonization. Carbon is only one parameter of this very complex thing of sustainability. Okay? Just to broadly understand, people talk about three aspects. Differently, one is ecology, the natural environment around us, one is economy, the production, distribution aspect of it, and the third is society, the fact that we need to survive as a society. But if you analyze that, you find that if I decarbonize, it may be at the cost of society going down, and so on. So these three are not necessarily aligned with each other. So in other words, for example, let's say I put an I put a hydroelectric power plant to produce aluminium in a very rich country with very few people, as opposed to I put it in a poor country with a lot of people, where it will produce much more, but it will not use hydroelectricity, it will use coal that has a large ash content and therefore produce a lot of carbon. Which choice do you take? On one hand, you put in a rich country and hydroelectric power is more clean fuel. Therefore, the carbon part will be better. So your ecology part is better. But very few people will become even richer than they already are. Compared to in this poor country, where a much larger number of people will be better economically, and that will make a substantial difference to mortality. But carbonization will also get a bit bigger bit. Which one are you going to choose? So in other words, sustainability research is very difficult to do. Nobody has an answer. But we must take it in its full complexity rather than bringing it down to only carbonization. That's a main of research. I haven't quite answered, I have only opened up to yeah.
Thank you for the answer.
All right.
Professor, thank you for the presentation. I see that from your presentation, you remarks where Professor John Hero
You bring it down.
okay. Yeah, what I'm going to ask is out of my curiosity about the computational thinking. The one that, if I'm not mistaken, Professor Gero came up with the idea of the dual mode of thinking between the design thinking and computational thinking, in which these two modes of thinking must concurrently apply when, in case of architecture, by the way, magnet is asking from architecture partner. These two modes of thinking must be learned by human first, because in order us to approach the apparatus that largely will by the computational process, we are going to have to learn how computational process works. That's why some of our architecture thinkers came up with computational design thinking, the one that bridge between design thinking and computational thinking. I'm going to ask, what do you feel about this development of our own thinking in preparing the age of acceleration? Thank you.
Okay, my simple answer would be that you can come to my conference next year in 2027. John James is coming. You can ask me the question. It's a difficult question to answer. It requires work. I don't think they know the answer. I don't. They think that they know the answer. I don't think they know. Broadly speaking, my understanding is that even the word design thinking is undergoing evolution of understanding. What is design thinking? How is it distinct from other kinds of thinking? Is something that is also undergoing development. So design thinking, the word started pretty much by Stanford guys who wanted to create a simple version of design process in order to teach people who are not from design. Right? These school, all of that, Larry Leifer, that group initiated that. These school came up when money was put in by several people, and they started this program. I don't think a great deal of deep research has happened. But later on, people are reflecting on that to say, what is it that it essentially constitutes, and we did some work as well. We came up with the idea that there are basically four basic processes. One is identification of opportunities, challenges, and so on. Second is ideation, coming up with ways of solving, and then consolidation, making it better, and selection, saying which one is better, and then going on with that. So those are the four fundamental kind of activities that we do. Design thinking traditionally has focused on human as a major element, saying that, okay, whatever you are doing for human. You are doing as human, you are doing with humans, therefore the humanistic aspect must play a significant role in how you think. That's why then, even though it was incorrect, this 5-step process or 6-step process that Stanford found, they use empathy as a step. Empathy is not a step. It is one method of understanding the problem better. In fact, there are many other methods. They put it as a step because they wanted to really emphasize. Second point, they wanted to emphasize on prototype. That you try it out and see if it works, and ideally try it out with those people. So again, the human comes back and see if they like it, and if not, then you go back and change it. So these two aspects are, by and large, seen as two major parts of thinking. That you focus on the human and you focus on your quickly producing something, trying it out and seeing if it works. When you talk about computational thinking, it's about a structured process of solving or identifying and solving any problem. Now, what you see between these two is there is no contradiction. If I am focused on the human and I am trying things out, that doesn't stop me from being structured or not being structured. Therefore, the two can easily come together. Whether it comes together for better or worse, only time will tell and decide. That's my moderately long answer. I'm not going into that one. Yeah.
You must be.
Hello, Prof.
Also,
Yeah.
yeah. Please go ahead.
My name is Imolin.
Just move it down a little bit. Yeah.
My name is Universitas Komputer Indonesia. I have, I actually write it on Q&A, but I won't ask you directly. I have a question. How should design education institutions respond to the advancement of AI to ensure graduates remain critically and creatively relevant? And second, I think originality is important for training. So does originality is implemented in the era of design student?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the first question, if I understand correctly, is given that AI is there, how do you train people in remaining relevant? Right? Okay. Can I come and see your question? Is it okay? I'll come and see your question. There is a lot of disturbance. Yeah. 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 Okay. How should design education institutions respond to the advancement of AI to ensure graduates remain critically and creatively relevant? And the second question is? Second question, how do it, is originality relevant, right? Yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, I think, I'm trying to give some pointers to my last 4 or 5 slides. I want you to go back and look at them. But let me give a brief answer to the question. The only way people can be original is if they strengthen their originality first. In other words, they ought to be able to come up with original ideas on their own. If you want people to do maths on their own, they have to learn how to do maths on their own. Same thing is true for originality. You need to give them problems that they have not come across, and you need to train them in creativity methods to strengthen their originality possibility. Okay? And there are 2 broad areas. One is knowledge. If they know lots of things, then they can be motivated because they can bring knowledge from multiple areas. And 2, they need to be flexible. Just like we said, faster horses. And unfortunately, Ford got stuck into that entire sentence. And he thought it was a bad idea to go to the user. And I don't agree with him. Ford should have gotten rid of the word horse and only focused on faster. He would have got his answer from the user themselves. So you need to also train them how to look at ambiguous problems and how to create original solutions for ambiguous problems. The problem should be as ambiguous as possible, so that there is opportunity for interpretation. So we need to train in things that we are good at: interpretation, abstraction, decomposition, composition, conflict identification, conflict resolution, prototyping. Physical prototyping is still an area that ultimately tells us what the object is going to look like. No matter how many photographs or paintings that Dali creates, ultimately the product is going to be physical, very object. Wherever there is that opportunity, you train them to become better. That cannot be done by just running some 3D printer somewhere. Because the surface quality is dramatically different. 3D printers can't immediately. So hands-on prototyping is also an area. So originality has to be trained. Similarly, critical thinking has to be trained. What is acceptable as outcome, what is not acceptable? How to evaluate things, how to compare them with each other? How to take a data as reliable or not reliable? That's a good answer. And the answer to the second question, originality, yes, is still relevant. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Next, we have another. Sudah ada, kita sudah ada mic. Silakan.
I think the discussion.
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning.
My name is Elso. I'm a master design graduate student. First of all, I would like to say that your presentation is brilliant because it's also connected to my thesis topic, which speaks AI as well. And its effect on the work ecosystem, specifically in tradition. I actually have a lot of questions, but there's this one question I would like to ask, which I feel this is the most important one. Currently, based on what I've researched so far, high school students have a high anxiety in choosing their career currently. For example, a few high schoolers I interviewed, they said that they want to take design degrees, but they're afraid of taking those so because they think that AI is going to replace them, the designers. My question is, how would, if you are in my position and you are in front of these high schoolers, how would you encourage these students to make sure that they can still become design students without the fear of being replaced by AI? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, it's great also to have questions from students. So thank you for asking. Let me be brutally honest. Okay. When I did my undergraduate, okay, that's like 1 million years ago, I had no idea, and I did it in mechanical engineering. I had no idea, not even this question in my mind, I was that dumb, that whether mechanical engineering is a good area to do my undergraduate in. It's good that at least today's high schoolers are asking that question. Having said that, am I doing much mechanical engineering? Well, a little bit, but mostly not. What am I doing? I'm researching on sustainability or creativity. These are not taught in mechanical engineering, okay? Or for that matter, any engineering. So how is it that I'm asking myself, it's a rhetorical question. How is it that I'm doing something that when I studied my undergraduate, I knew nothing of? Because what we have learned is not a particular discipline. Okay? What we learned, the underlying learning is not the disciplinary learning. If you ask me questions about the courses that I have studied in my undergraduate, 99% are forgotten. Okay? I will not be able to tell you any of those equations. So what is it that undergraduate brought to me then? It brought to me a way of assessing what is scientific knowledge and how to assess and develop scientific knowledge. Okay? In my case, knowledge. And therefore, it doesn't matter what area I work in, I apply that knowledge and I produce. My wife, you saw lots of photographs, she's sitting here, studied her undergraduate in geography. Geography, yes. And then decided, maybe I should do my master's in comparative literature. Not really connected, is it? And then got married to me, bad for her, came to England, got interested in computers, so studied computing. Then came back and I'm interested in animation and design, so let me be a designer. So studied design. And then said, now that our child is born, maybe I should understand child psychology better. Let me understand Montessori method. And became a Montessori teacher. And then became an HR professional. I mean, I can go on. But the point is the following. That it is our ability to learn and be flexible as life changes, to adapt. That's the only thing that matters. Just because they take a design degree doesn't mean that they have to remain a conventional designer forever. world is going to change, I cannot tell how the world is going to change. We have to survive to see them. Just adapt. So learning is only about learning. How to learn new things, how to adapt. So I wouldn't worry at all. You tell them to join design. It at least trains them in solving ambiguous, not well-formed problems. That's how life is. So all the best to all of them. No problem. Join design. Or any other discipline. Yeah. Okay, next question.
Okay, we'll